Oh my God, it's a giant. Bro, there's just no way that just happened right now. What's up, guys? It's Cutcarrycast podcast, episode 11. We have a new guest, Mr. Greg Woods. Super grateful to have him on the podcast today. Greg is a Delta rat and one of the best anglers I've fished with to date. Greg has great attention to detail and is probably one of the best punching experts in our area. Greg was nice enough to come on the show today and will be giving us some tips for punching and a Delta report. What's going on, Greg?
How's it going, Riley? I've been doing good. I don't know about the best puncher around, but I can hang with the best of them.
He's sure. One of the best. One of the best. The guy's not going to say it himself. I'll say it for him. Yeah, I've been in the boat with quite a few people, and that's why we have you on the show today to talk about what you do and what you've been up to. But I think I'll tell a quick story about how we met real quick, just so people listening kind of know. We have a mutual buddies named Joey, and I believe we're at his house. I don't know if it was like his graduation. Is that why we were there?
Yeah, we were graduating from paramedic school. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a medic, and my buddy was in school with me, and we were just at a random graduation party, and it just went down. It was gone from there.
It was a wrap. Yeah, I remember we were like sitting next to each other. I was like, "Hey, what's up, bro?" And then I forget, we said, I don't know if you were wearing a hat or a shirt or something.
Yeah, I had a Tackle Warehouse shirt on. You were like, you fish? And then we were trying to feel each other out, because there's some people that fish, but like
they're not really about it.
Like, they're not really about it like the real fishing community is. So we were like, who do you know? Like, how much do you fish? And are you really about it like that?
That's like my favorite part of the whole story. Is I remember literally being like, so like, I see you got the Tackle Warehouse fish, but like, do you really fish? And you're like, oh, I fish. And I'm like, but do you go to the Delta? And he's like, do you know who you're talking to right now? And I'm like, I actually don't. I actually don't know who I'm talking to. That's what I'm trying to find out. But
nah, man, you over here making me look like I'm trying to be famous or something.
Oh, that was funny. That was good. But yeah, that's about as real as it gets right there.
Yeah, it really is, and that's how it happens, man. Like half the time, man, it's like two people that just randomly just meet up. They both fish, and then it's a wrap from there. They start pulling out the phone pictures and say, oh, you got this one. Oh man, look at this one. Everybody, no, we got to go fishing now.
No, that's awesome. So I know we talked about you're a medic. Kind of give people a little rundown about you.
Work wise.
Yeah, just your whole deal. You live in Sac, mostly on the Delta.
So I live in Sacramento, California. I work as you said, I'm a paramedic. I work for a private called AMR. I do 911 in Sacramento area. And yeah, I'm a fisherman. I'm a Delta rat, or at least I try to be. I'm out there probably 2 to 3 times a week. Days, but yeah, man, I just spend most of my free time fishing, dude. It's what I love to do.
Yeah, and then for what's kind of your backstory as far as like how you got into the whole thing? Because I know you and your dad like to fish.
Yeah, so when I was young, my dad would always take me out, just off the bank. We never really had a boat when I was growing up. But as I was like getting older, he would just never have time. And I'd be like, oh, Dad, let's go fishing. Let's go off the bank. Let's hit the river. And he's like, oh, sorry, son. I got work today. I got this, I got that. I can't do it. So I took it upon myself. I had a big little something by my house. I'm gonna be like, oh, forget you, Dad. I'm gonna go over here, this little creek. And it was right from there. I was at that creek 10, 12 hours, 15 hours a day, from sun up to sundown, and the love for the sport just kind of grew from there. And I was in 7th grade, and I met one of my really good buddies, Arlando Abella. Some people know him, some people don't. But me and him started fishing tournaments when we were real young, and then I got a boat, in 2021, 2022, something like that. And I really started dissecting the Delta from there. Me and Orlando would always go out on mainly on the Delta there, and like Comanche and Party and stuff before they were closed. We'd just be, we'd just be picking it apart, but we weren't really like Delta rats back then. Once I got my rig, I knew where I wanted to fish. I don't really care about the lakes. I don't really care about Berryessa or Comanche or love Clear Lake, but I got the Delta an hour away from my house, so it's like the Delta is tough to beat when it's that close.
Yeah, I mean, I tell a lot of people the same thing as that. One of my buddies, Quinn, that's come on here. He's always going to Clear Lake. He's kind of closer, living up in Orville. I want to say it's
Mm-hmm.
only like maybe an hour and a half from him or something. But
Yeah, it's not too
I always
bad.
tell him, I'm like, I get the Delta could be tough for people or whatever. Or, Clear Lake's one of the best bass fisheries in the entire country. But I'm like, I don't know. When the Delta's going down, it's kind of its own thing. Uh,
Yeah, and the Delta and Clear Lake are similar, but in kind of like a different aspect because they both have these like crazy bite windows where you can just pull up to a spot and it's just like bang 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 4 pounder, 3 pounder, 4 pounder, 8 pounder. But they're different because the Delta has the tides, and Clear Lake it's sometimes it's wind current or sometimes it's just time of day base. So it but they're similar, but they're different. You know what I mean?
no, for sure. What kind of boat are you running right now?
So I am running a 19-foot Phoenix. What is this thing? 919 Elite, Phoenix 919 Elite.
Cool. And I know you are fishing some tournaments right now. What do you got kind of scheduled for this year?
So for the rest of this year, I really only have two more like somewhat big tournaments left. I've been doing the Future Pro circuit. That the TOC for that tournament, I want to say, is like the first week of October, and that one's on Don Pedro. Not looking forward to that, obviously. And then Vince also the Pro 60, and that TOC I want to say is like the 18th and 19th of October, which is like one of my favorite times of year for the Delta. I live fall time Delta. That is my jam right there.
Nice. And I think the new thing I'm going to start doing on the podcast, just for fun, we want your personal best story, and we'll go with that first. And I got one more question for you before we start.
Personal best story.
Like
So my
story of
personal
your personal best bass. I should be more
so
specific.
so my personal best is a 10-4. It was on the Delta. I want to say it was like the first week of March. It was in White Slough. What's new? All the big fish live in White Slough. You know, um, I was going down a bank and I was punching like I usually do, and I end up sticking a 4 pounder, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like this is a solid fish. Weigh him. I'm like, okay, it's 4.5. Cool. Lock him in. Throw him in the water. Right. I keep fishing, fishing. Boom! I swing on one, and it's like a 9. I don't remember what it was. It was like a 9.5 or something. And I'm like, oh shit, that's a giant right there. It might be going down right here. Weigh that one. I put that one in the box, and then I keep flipping down, and it's just like 2 pounder, 3 pounder, 2 pounder, 3 pounder. And this is like damn near on consecutive flips. And I'm like, oh, I found the window, right? So I go up the stretch, and it kind of dies down, and I turn around, and I start coming back down the stretch, and I'm flipping, and I flip into a mat. I'm like, oh, I missed this mat back here. Let me flip back, right? And I flip back, and boom, I get slammed. I set the hook, fish shoots out of the mat. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's another giant, right? I'm fighting him, and I'm dumb. I boat flip all of my fish. Doesn't matter if it's 2 pounds, doesn't matter if it's 10 pounds, right? So I'm fighting him, and finally I get him next to the boat, and I freaking swing him in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what? what have I done? He lands on the deck. I'm like, that's a 10-pounder. And I weigh him, and he's 10.4, and I put him on the scale, or I put him in the box, and I think I catch another like 5, and I think I end up with like 32.9 or something like that. And it was just one of those epic days on the Delta, early season on the Delta. It's feast or famine out there, and it was one of those days that I feasted, man.
Dang. And then what? And you said you had 32 pounds. What's your biggest bag that you've caught out there?
That's it right there. 32
Yep.
pounds.
Yep.
32 pounds is my biggest sack.
Which is an incredible bag. Dirty 30 right there.
Yeah, which is kind of rare on the Delta these days. It's not Delta doesn't fish quite like it used to in the mid 2000s or in the early 2000s.
Yeah. How long ago did you catch that limit?
That was 2022, I believe.
Gotcha. Because how many over 10 do you have right now?
So
Half a
I
dozen,
have
or
Nah, I wish, man. I have 3 over 10. I caught them all in the same year, which was crazy.
guy's life's ruined now. He caught all the fish in the same year.
Yeah, I know. I'm a one and done guy. I like to have 1 year and then I just chill out for the rest.
Yeah, we were talking to Austin Wilson on one of our last podcasts, and I remember he was talking about someone, I can't remember who it was, but some guy that had multiple over 10 this year out there. And I was just like, God, dude, like, I mean, a couple years ago, I know we had my buddy Mark on, and he was saying, you catch 4 or 5 over 10 a year back in the early 2000s, like you said. And it's like, I don't know, you don't hear about it as much anymore, especially the same person catching multiple. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's very, very rare these days. I think my buddy Hung has a few over 10 this year. That boy's been mashing them this season.
Yeah, and it's awesome to hear that kind of stuff. Just for those of you that are still coming out to the Delta consistently, I mean, I still believe that's one of your best chances at catching 1 over 10.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really good to hear because like at least for me, the last couple of years, the Delta has not been good. So it's good to see people catching those big fish again. It's showing that the Delta's bouncing back.
Yeah, hopefully we can catch something, catch a good wave. I feel like we've had a lot of water too the last couple of years, which at first I thought maybe wasn't the greatest thing because it blew the river out so much. But I think maybe it'll give us like a nice fresh canvas to.
Yeah. These fisheries, they go in all these ebbs and flows where they're good and they're bad. And I heard you talking about it with Zach Clover on the last podcast. Sometimes fisheries have fish kills. Sometimes they have low water years, which makes it bad. The Delta I don't really know what went on the last couple of years, but it seems like it's starting to bounce back.
I'm here for it. So this guy's out here 2 to 3 days a week. We want to report. What's going on, man?
You want the GPS coordinates, huh?
Yeah, send the waypoints over just for me though.
Yeah, I got you. No, the Delta's it's been good. It's been good for me. You have to do a lot of moving around right now. If you're not on fish, you need to move because the fish they're far and few in between. But when you find them, it seems like you find a group of good ones. So the name of the game right now is just run and gun. Usually I won't spend more than 10 to 15 minutes at a spot. If I'm not catching fish, I'm gone. I'm moving,
No, for sure. And then obviously this guy punches a lot. Is there anything else you've been catching fish on, or mostly just punching and flipping?
Yeah, mainly, man. I just punch, man. I do throw like a chatter or like a frog, kind of just in between. I'm kind of specific with my frog. I don't like to frog over mats. They tend to miss it a lot. So usually I'll try to frog either open water or like a duckweed mat, or if it's like a really really thin mat, I'll frog it. But if it's too thick, I'm like, man, the likelihood of that fish blowing through that mat and finding that frog is relatively low. So, but yeah, mainly I just punch and I just frog and chatter, throw some top water in between, punch stretches.
For sure. Yeah. For those of you guys listening, the first time me and Greg fished, I mean, every time we fished, this guy told me before he went out, he's like, yeah. I was like, oh, what should I tie up? What should I tie up? He's like, oh, bring your punch rod, and if you want something else, you can bring that too. And I'm like, okay, okay. And then like we went out, and then I'm like, a couple hours goes by, more hours goes by, the whole day goes by, and I'm like, Jesus, this guy was not kidding. This guy just flips all day. This guy's shoulders, like he's got his left arm's like the biggest arm I've ever seen. He just
Yeah, hey man, I'm loyal. I'm loyal to the sword. I die by the sword, man.
yeah,
That's what I do.
he definitely does. And you keep that thing in your hand long enough, especially on the Delta, it's gonna happen at least
Yep.
at some point that day.
Yep. I mean, there's mainly three baits that catch the giant fish, and for me, that like my specialty is punching. And you got the chatter, and you got mainly punch, chatter, frog. Those are your three that's going to catch you a big one for the most part. You can catch them on like drop shot and stuff, but you got to go through the numbers to do that. But like for me, I'm gonna do what's catching the big fish, and that's for me on the Delta. That's going to be a punch. It's kind of like a lake where you go to the lake and you're going to spend time catching a big fish. You're going to be throwing a swim bait. So why wouldn't you spend most of your time, just trying to catch, a giant rather than numbers? It's you got to, for me, you got to make the sacrifice if you want to be successful out here.
No, definitely. And I know from a tournament standpoint, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. What's like kind of your mindset like when it comes to punching in your fishing these tournaments? Because I know you're probably spending sometimes maybe most of the tournament not actually catching fish.
Yeah, honestly, my mind. So I try to really plan out my days on the Delta. I will literally take a pen and a piece of paper, and I will say, okay, I have this spot, and this spot. This spot goes at this tide. This spot goes at this tide, and this spot goes at this time. This tide. So I need to be here, probably about 30 to 45 minutes before this tide goes so I can catch the window, because I don't know exactly when it's going to be on this given day. And then I need to be here at this time, and I need to be here according to the tide at this time. So when I'm tournament fishing on the Delta, I'm a tide runner. So I'm moving, I'm covering water, and I'm trying to time those tides perfectly. Sometimes it ends up working out, sometimes it doesn't. It's just the name of the game.
Yeah, and then kind of building off that same mindset. So you mentioned earlier, okay, like I'm going to run to a spot, I'm going to spend, 10, 15 minutes here. If it's not happening, I'm going to move on. How do you kind of change that approach when this is like one of your tournament spots? Like, will you kind of just like linger for, like you said, that 30-minute period, just waiting for it to fire all of a sudden? Or how do you kind of play that?
Yeah, so usually if I'm fishing a tournament and I know there's big fish in the area, yeah, I'll spend a little bit more time. But if I'm like practicing, I'm just having, just a fun day on the water, then yeah, I'm moving around a lot. But like I said, I try to plan my day, and sometimes the tide windows won't line up exactly to where I can, do here, and here, like all in a row. So typically I'll fish my one stretch for 30, 45 minutes, an hour, however long it takes to fish that stretch. And then I'll have kind of like some free time in between the tide windows. And then, okay, well, I have these spots on the way. Let me check this, and this, and this. And that's where I'm like, okay, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Okay, I'm not, go halfway up the stretch here. Okay, nothing. I'm moving. You know what I mean? And until that next tide window hits. And then, okay, it's, oh, look at the clock. It's 10:30. I need to, shoot over to, Rock Slough or, Fisherman's Cut or something like that,
No, for sure. So, we got a lot of people on the channel that are new to, especially some of this like technique specific stuff. Give us kind of a breakdown, like setup wise, of how you like to like lay out your rods, because I know you got a couple punch rods on the deck.
Yeah. So I mainly have two punch rods. I actually just bought a new rod. It was a Mega Bass punch rod, and it's a great rod, but I don't really like that one, so I'm not really going to talk about it. Mainly, I throw the OG GLX. It's a G Loomis GLX 954, and then I throw the brand new GLX 954. They're both 711. I think they're medium heavy. The newer one is a moderate, and then I believe the old one is just a heavy. I throw both of those on a Shimano Corrado 70. Most people hear that 70 and they're like, oh, what? Oh, he throws it on a 70. But if you go to the Shimano website and you look at the stats for the 70 is not the same as the old 70. They beefed the 70 up. And if you look at the stats, the 70 actually has more drag power than I want to say the regular Corrado. It's either the same or 1 pound heavier. I can't remember exactly, but personally, I want a very compact reel that I can flip with all day. That's going to have at least a little bit of power. That's going to be able to drag, those fish out of the thick stuff. And then for line, I use 80-pound test.
Big 80 guy. And then, so you have a couple rods on the deck. Do you like to kind of like usually like, okay, this one I'm gonna have these weights, or these ones I'm gonna have these baits or colors? How do you kind of like to like change all that up depending on your setup?
So typically I'll have on those two rods, I'll have one bait without a skirt and then one bait with a skirt. Typically the bait without a skirt, it'll be an ounce, and typically the bait with the skirt, it'll be an ounce and a half. And then I don't really like the skirts that are out on the market today, so I usually just tie my own skirts. And it's no like professional ass skirt. It's, that's all pretty and shit. I just get the colors that I want, and I just, figure out how to, assemble it together myself. Because I really like a very dense punch shirt. I really feel like that's what really gets you a lot of those big bites. Because a lot of those smaller fish, they can't handle those bigger crawdads. Them crawdads can fight. You know what I mean? Them crawdads got some paws on them, and they'll fight off those smaller fish. At least the bigger ones. So the bigger crawdads are typically eaten by the bigger fish. You know what I mean? So you use a bigger bait or a bigger profile.
Definitely. And then here's a question for you. So you said you got 3/10. Were any of those not on a skirted punching setup?
Let me think about that. I think they were all on a skirted rig. I believe they were all on a skirted punch rig. No, I don't think I ever thought about that. They were.
So something to think about. Kind of interesting. I know, especially like some of the old tactical bassin videos, kind of funny. I can hear him saying this right now, but he was talking about punching on Clear Lake, punching on the Delta, and he was saying there's just something about the skirt on the Delta specifically.
It's true, because they don't at Clear Lake they don't hit the skirt the same. They don't. You can still catch them on a punch skirt, but it's not as productive as it is on the Delta, at least for big fish. And for me on the Delta, I catch probably 90% of my big fish on a skirted rig. It's very rare that I'll catch a big one on something without a skirt. But it's probably a confidence thing. It's what it really comes down to. I throw a skirt majority of the time, so obviously I'm going to catch all of my big fish on a skirt if that's what I throw.
No, for sure. Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. I feel like a lot of the times, like my 1 ounce, like, bait with whatever bait I have on there, like, yeah, I feel like you definitely catch a lot of small ones on that rig as you're catching other ones. Like, not to say you can't catch big ones, because you do too, but I feel like, those punch fish where you crack them and they like fly out of the mat and go over your head. It's always on that 1 ounce rig with just the single
without
bait.
the skirt. And honestly, like if you like actually think about it and you kind of like really dig into it about what these fish actually eat and like the size of what they're actually eating, the punch rig is obviously imitating a crawdad, right? And the average size of crawdad is probably 2 to 3 inches, and that's something that that 1 to 4 to 5 pound fish can handle. You know what I mean? They can handle a 2-inch crawdad, but once you get up into that 4, 5, they're like, oh man, them pinchers are kind of big. I don't know if I want to mess with you. You might poke my eye out or something. So once you get into those bigger, more bulky crawdads, you get rid of those smaller fish. They don't want problems with that. But once Big Mama come around, once that belly shirt come into play, she'll all she got to do is open her mouth, and that thing is in her crushers. You know.
It's a
So
wrap.
it's a way it's a way to weed out, all those all the fluff, all those little tiny guys. To get that, you get that big profile, you're weeding out all those littler fish. You can test it out. I've done it tons of times. They make punch skirts nowadays where you can just slide them up the hook, and you can, if let's test this out. I want to take this punch skirt off, just slide it off the hook, and get to flipping. Oh, little one, little one, little one, little one, and then let me put this punch skirt back on. Oh, I'm not catching nothing. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, bam, 7-pounder. You know what I mean? So it's all trial and error is what it is.
Yeah, so I know you mentioned, what was mid-September we're coming up on now, finally starting to get some cool days, still a couple hot days sneaking up, but I mean, I'm looking outside today and it's overcast. What are some of those like fall patterns that you can point people in the direction of, especially when it comes to the punch?
So early fall, you can still kind of punch a little bit of everything. Typically early fall, I still stay relatively shallow, but as the season kind of goes on, October, November, December, I go deeper and deeper and deeper. And typically once, November, December hits and everybody's like, oh, the Delta's shutting down. Oh, we're catching them on jerk baits and drop shot and Senko now. We're not catching them punching anymore. Usually I can catch them for another about month, half a month to a month, all the way into mid-December is really when it shuts down for me. And honestly, it just comes down to your depth. You have to, as the later the year goes, the deeper you have to go. And typically once I'm all the way kind of into that late November, December, I'm fishing 10 to 15, sometimes even 20 foot of water to get those fish to activate. And you have to fish slow, real slow, but you can still catch a bag doing it. You can go on my Instagram, look it up. We used to do my homies, we used to do a little turkey shoot day after Thanksgiving. Shout out to the Sacramento Lip Rippers, the squad. And I'm sacking 24 and a half pounds, day before December, so it still goes down in those later months, but you just have to go deeper and deeper and deeper to catch these fish.
No, that's definitely an interesting point. What do you feel like? I know a lot of it probably has to do with like water clarity and stuff, but as far as like colors go, do you kind of change your colors throughout the year depending on what's happening, or is it more just water clarity dependent? What can you?
Yes and yes. Earlier in the year, I'll typically stick to like the more natural colors. If the water is clear and we don't have like a rainy season, and the water is real muddy, usually I'll do like a Magic Cross swirl, or just a regular green pumpkin, or something of that nature. Because typically the crawdads that time of year are like more of a green pumpkin kind of color. And then as the year goes on, that's when I kind of like adapt, just based on the water clarity. And usually I'll go more to your like browns and your PB&J. I don't really throw too much of the like the reds too often. I don't know why, but I just don't catch as many big fish on the red, and it's weird because you're imitating a crawdad, but I there's something about just that brown and those dark colors that give you that contrast in the water that it just seems more productive to me. And granted, you still can catch big fish on red and those bright colors. It's obviously a proven color in shallow water, but I also think that it has something to do with the type of cover that you're fishing as well, because there's there's just different structures that different types of crawdads like to hang out on. Certain species of crawdads like to hang out on this type of structure, and certain species of crawdads like to hang out on a different type of structure. So it just kind of depends on what you're fishing and where you're fishing at.
No, that definitely makes sense. Do you feel like you're like find yourself like trying to imitate like the bluegill in the summertime and stuff like that, or you still in your head more like always thinking craws when you're punching?
So I mean, in my head, I'm always thinking craws, but like I have those bluegill colors, that are in my lineup that I'll flip day in and day out. But typically in my head, I'm like, oh, I got to imitate this craw because bass eat crawdads to fish. I feel like it's like 8 to 1 when you're on the delta. I feel like it's a crawdad is such an easy snack for a bass, and they can just go anywhere and just right along the bottom, just swoop that crawdad up. I'm gonna get that one. I'm gonna get that one. It's just easy pickings. They don't have to work hard for it.
Yeah, and I know I'll tell everyone something that you told me, a tip that I still pay attention to. And I remember you told me a long time ago. You're like, hey, when you're fishing the mats, pay attention to the tops of the mats. Like sometimes you'll literally see the crawdads just sitting in there, and a lot of times when you flip in, you'll see like a little flicker on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
and it's them kind of swimming back down. So I remember you told me that, and the next time I went out, next time I saw that, I grabbed my net and I just dunked it like a couple times, like when I saw, and I started pulling out these crawdads, and it was a total trip to see because like the area that I was in at that time of year, like they were all bright red, and then
Mm-hmm.
I did it again a couple months later. A lot of them were green. It kind of just
Yep.
it kind of just depend. And I feel like a lot of people, especially bass fishermen, they know like, okay, like I know what a crawdad looks like. I know, I have an idea of it in my head, but like to actually see the ones in the area that you're fishing, I think could be, you know, worth paying attention to.
100%. And it honestly, and I didn't know this until probably just recently that there's different species of crawdads that like to hang out in like different structures. So those red crawdads that you see, those are red swamp craws, or red swamp crayfish, crawdad, whatever the hell you want to call them, doesn't really matter. But like the more like the green pumpkin, they can kind of have like a brownish look sometimes. I want to say those ones are called virile craws, and the virile craws, they like to hang out in the grass typically. So all those fish that you're seeing in the grass, they're like a green pumpkinish or like a brown, maybe like a little bit of burgundy on the top. Those are virile craws. And then the red swamp crawlers, those are the ones that kind of like to hang out on the bottom. They like to burrow into like the peat moss, and like they burrow up onto the bank. Though you'll see a lot of those on the main channel and in Frank's track because there's a lot of hard bottom they can dig into it. But those virile craws are the ones that you're typically going to see in those grass mats.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like the only crawdad I've ever heard of is like the signal crayfish. I think those are the ones that turn like that blue color and stuff.
Right,
Um,
right. There's tons of them apparently. There's like a rusty craw which has like a orangish spot on the side, and there's tons of them, man. There's really not much research done on them, and they're finding new species of crawdads all the time. So
yeah, that's kind of interesting because I know on Folsom Lake specifically, we get a lot of orange in our crayfish
mhm,
out there,
right.
especially like when it comes to throwing jigs and stuff. So it's just all stuff to pay attention to. And I feel like, at least for me, the crawdad stuff was kind of like under, like you said, under focused on. Like you see the bluegill, you're like, okay, like they're getting some purple in them, or they're getting some chartreuse or orange or whatever. You can kind of like change your chatterbait
Mhm,
or whatever you're throwing. But I feel like with the
right.
punch, especially the delta, like not that red's a bad color because it's definitely not, but I feel like when people come out here that don't fish here a lot, like that's all they hear. It's just like, oh, Delta red, just like everything you have
Mhm.
on your entire deck's red, and like I don't know if that's always the correct answer.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. They see that Delta Craw color, that big ass bright day glow orange red spinner and they're like, oh, that's the one. But that's it's not always the case. It's all area based and forage based. You gotta do your research on your forage. Everybody does the research on the bass, but not everybody does the research on the forage and how these forages move, what they like to be in, and what color they are at certain times of year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely a trend. I mean, talking to Zach on some of the other podcasts, that guy definitely pays a lot of attention, especially up on Clear Lake, to all the different types of like bait fish and the hitch and everything. He spends a lot of time like, learning about that, and it definitely seems to be a trend with a lot of the guys that are doing better than other people. Just an understanding of the bait and
Yep.
the environment a little bit more, like you said, than just the surface of like the bass itself. You
Yeah,
know, sw-
it's an understanding of the ecosystem is what it is. Not just the bass, because it's the bass ain't the only thing that swims in the water. You know what I mean?
No, especially on the Delta. I mean, God, there's so many different things out there all the time. You never know,
Yep.
salmon coming in, striper coming in, all kinds
Yep.
of all kinds of different fish.
Yep. A lot of
So
moving parts.
what I was going to ask you is, obviously, like you have like a couple years now on the Delta, consistency, going out there all the time, year after year, kind of stuff. How do you kind of play? Especially with the punch bite, I feel like it's different. Like, okay, like every spring, this like rock oxbow like has a crankbait bite in like the middle of March.
Mhm.
I catch them there, cool. So now we're talking punching. We got spraying, we got weather, we got all these different things. How do you kind of attack these areas that you catch these fish year after year with this grass kind of always moving around and changing?
Yeah, that is definitely the one biggest thing about punching is you definitely got to stay on your toes, and you have to be able to know when the grass is healthy and when the grass is like it's kind of this grass doesn't look too good, because you'll fish through a stretch, one week, and it'll still look fine. It might look a little bit wilted over, and then you come up the next week and that stretch is completely gone, or it's all burnt. You know what I mean? The hyacinth is brown and it just looks nasty. So punching is one of those things where you never really have a consistent spot, but typically there's at least something to fish everywhere you go, because they can spray the grass, but they can never spray all of it. They ain't never gonna spray all of it. They can spray the mats, they can spray the primrose, they can spray the eladia, but they're never gonna get all of it. You know what I mean? So that's gonna be something that's gonna be around. And typically when they start really spraying heavy, those fish will concentrate in that healthy stuff. So it's that's why that's part of the reason why I move a lot, because like I'll pull up somewhere, fish 10-15 minutes. Oh, this doesn't look right. This grass is dying. Or I'll pull up, put the trolling motor down. Yeah, this is dead. I'm gone. I don't even fish it. Like I don't want it. You know, there is certain situations where I will fish dead stuff, but there has to be a time period in between the time that I fish it and when they spray. So
And is that
it's all about what the mat looks like.
no, definitely. And do you feel like those times where you're fishing that dead stuff, it's like beginning the process of like living again? Like maybe there's like a couple spots that are like starting to come back or whatnot, but you can tell they sprayed it maybe a couple weeks ago or
Yeah, for sure. So if it's grass, if they spray grass, you just need to get out of the area, because once they spray that grass, I want to say the grass like eats up all the oxygen or something, and the fish they can't survive in that. So once they hit that grass real hard, you got to move until that grass recovers and it starts growing back again. But with the emergent vegetations, your hyacinths, your pennyworts, your primroses, um, it'll still do the same thing, but for some reason about a certain time period after, they'll get back into that stuff. And a lot of people don't like to fish that type of stuff because it's ugly, and it doesn't look good. Oh, it's burned, it's brown, it's dead. The fish don't want to be in that stuff. But you would be flabbergasted. You would be mind blown with some of the cover and the structure that I catch these punch fish out of, like they will get into the ugliest and nastiest, brownest stuff, and they will school up. I've seen fish out here school up on mats the size of a couch. I'll catch 5, 6 3-pounders out of just one little tiny little mat, you know. So it's all about being open minded, you know. Just because you don't have the confidence to do it doesn't mean you can't do it. You know, you experiment because you might learn something.
No, you got to be willing to go out on a limb sometimes. And I feel like, especially if you're in an area where there just isn't a lot of options for the fish, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
the super crappy option is the best option for them.
Exactly, 100%. I agree.
So obviously we've talked about it on the channel before, all the different types of vegetation on the Delta, you know, whether we have floating or submerged vegetation. Uh, do you feel that like the type of vegetation is as important to you, or is it more of like how the spot sets up? For example, like, okay, maybe we have like coontail in this area, or we have LED in this area, but like we have, you know, the good depth or the good current or whatnot. Do you feel like it really matters, or is there grass for you that you're like, okay, this is what I'm focusing most of my time with?
So as it goes for like the as it goes for submerged vegetation, the fish 100%, I feel like they prefer the Eladia over everything in the Delta. Um, Sometimes they'll get in the red leaf and they'll get in the milfoil and the coontail, but day in and day out, I'm gunning down that Eladia. That's what I'm searching for. And sometimes, as you know, because of these spray boats, that stuff is hard to find, you know. And other grasses, once they spray that Eladia, other grasses take over, and typically it's going to be that coontail. I found that the fish don't really quite like the coontail as much as the Eladia. You can 100% still catch giants out of it, and I've done it. But it's a substantial difference for sure. Though those fish prefer to get in that LED a lot more than they do the coontail, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I've noticed that like the floating vegetation seems to be more just like whatever, you know, like if
Hmm.
it's there, it's there. But the submerged stuff, like I feel like I've punched miles of coontail and not caught anything. And sometimes I ask myself, I'm like, God, like if I saw the same quality of grass but Eladia, I would have caught something by now.
100%, 100%. And I don't know. It's like you look at it that coontail, and you're like, dang, this. I mean, it's coontail, but it's healthy and it looks good. Like, and but they just, I don't know. They don't get in it the same. And I don't know if it's a learning curve because we're just so used to fishing the LED out here. Um, but it just doesn't seem like they get in the same. And I'm still trying to figure the coontail out like completely. And it's you know it's a learning process. Everybody's learning out here continuously. So
Yeah, I know you talked about kind of varying depths when it comes to punching. Do you feel like, I know, at least in my personal experience, when it comes to floating vegetation, I feel like you can get away with like super shallow stuff or super deep stuff. It kind of
mhm.
depends because like there's always going to be water underneath it. But as far as like the submerged vegetation, I feel like if you don't have that depth sometimes, like it's hard because those hallways and stuff they're not under there the same.
Yeah, and I feel like it's specifically like that for the coontail for sure because I feel like that coontail, the top of it is just so dense, and the fish just can't move around as much. But I mean, if the tide is too low, then it's going to be like that regardless. The fish got to have room to swim around. They don't need much. They probably only need 8 inches to a foot to really actually be able to swim around in something. Um, but as far as like grass fishing goes, I do feel like there's a window where these fish like to feel comfortable and they won't really get up too much shallower. You can catch them like on a frog in like open water and in nothing, but with the grass over top, I really feel like they don't really like to get in that stuff that's super shallow because they can't be as stealthy in it.
Yeah, like they're kind of just smashing through. 'Cause I feel like the Eladia, like the way it grows, it just there's a lot more like holes, a lot more like hallways underneath the mat. It's not just like a solid
Hmm.
wall. Because sometimes that coontail you can't even punch through it. Like it just almost like
Yep.
eats your bait in the top like 6 inches of it, and it never actually falls through.
Yeah, and this stuff is it's so the coontail is so hard that it's I don't know. It's I don't know. Yeah, it's weird because like Clear Lake they get in that stuff. Clear Lake they'll get in the coontail, but it's not on the Delta. Not
Yeah,
it's not the same at
because
least.
they don't really have the Eladia up there though, do they? Or is it?
No, they have that. It's not like really like a hippie grass, but it's like this stringy stuff that I don't really know what it's called. And then they have coontail.
Yeah, so it might be one of those things where, like you said, like they just don't have a choice, so that's the next best thing.
Right,
So they're
right. And I feel like Clear Lake fish they don't really care. They get a little moody sometimes, but they kind of dumb up there. They just get in whatever, and you put it in front of their face, and a lot of times they'll chew on it.
yeah. So speaking of that, kind of some of the Florida northern stuff. I know you fish all over the Delta, all the different areas. Have you actually seen a pattern with like, oh, all my double digits are from this certain area of the Delta, or are they kind of spread out, or what can you kind of tell people about that?
No, they're spread out everywhere. The Delta is one of those places where every slew's got a 10-pounder, man. So you just got to be at the right place at the right time with the right bait, with the right tide, and it'll go down. You'll get that new PB. So you just got to put your head down and grind when it comes to those big fish because they're usually you'll get 1 to 2 opportunities a day, and you just got to capitalize no matter where you're at.
Yeah, I know one thing that just popped in my head was I don't know if you fished the tournament last year or the year before, but I know you fished a tournament where I want to say you had like 28 pounds, and
Oh, the
and you
Wild
got and you
West.
got second, and they had like I don't know, they had 35 or something.
No, they had I think we had 27 and they had 28. I
Oh,
freaking hate talking about it. We should have won that tournament. Yeah, it's one of those things where it just wasn't our time, man. I'm being a hater. Shout out to the guys who won that tournament. But yeah, there was we launched out and I had the spot of all spots. We pulled up to the spot and we never left. It was 3-pounder, 3-pounder, 5-pounder all day. 3-pounder, 3-pounder, 6-pounder, 3-pounder, 3-pounder, 6-pounder, 3-pounder, 3-pounder, 6-pounder. And right at the end of the day, there was a wind advisory, so they shut down the tournament early. I think we had to be in at like 1 o'clock. And it was like 12, 15, and we got to go all the way back out to Big Break. And we stick, you know, we stick another one that's 6, and we're like, oh, it's about to light up again. And we're like, oh, come on, we just need 30 more minutes to catch these fish, and we just ran out of time. So it's a heartbreaker, but the other guys they did their thing, so they deserve to get the trophy.
was that a spring deal or what time of year was that?
I believe it was late spring. That was one of those tournaments where we couldn't do nothing wrong. We were catching fish all day. We weren't catching nothing under 3 pounds. We probably caught 50, 60 fish, and they were all between 3 and 6 pounds. And it was madness all day.
Damn, so that's crazy. So you guys are just blowing through baits.
Yeah, we're blowing through base left and right, and it's crazy because this tournament it was a couple of years ago, but it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't like prime time Delta, like 2006, 2007. Like this was relatively recent. I think this was like 2022, 2021 or something like that. So you know, which was crazy to me.
Did you end up going back to that same area after that, or was it kind of done after your tournament, your pre-fish deal?
No, that was one of my areas that I had been catching giants there for just years, but I had never like fully exploited it because like I always wanted to save it for a tournament. But every time that I tried to go fish it in a tournament, there would be some sort of like weather event that would turn the fish off. It'd be blowing 100 miles an hour, or it'd be like cold front, and the spot never really ended up working out. And this specific time, it was just lights out that day. So, but I ended up continuing to catch them after I fished that tournament. But they sprayed that area one year, and it just really hasn't bounced back the same fish wise. The grass still grows the same, but the fish haven't quite got in it like they used to.
Yeah, I know something you said earlier that I thought was interesting that I don't know if I really do that much is talking about catching multiple fish out of the same mat, or going through a stretch, turning around, going back through the stretch. I feel like on Folsom Lake or any lake, I feel like I would do that. Like I'd catch them off a point, and then I'd turn back around and fish the point again, catch more, maybe come back an hour later, catch more. I feel like maybe I don't do that enough on the Delta. Like maybe hit a window, catch the fish through the area, and then just keep going down the bank for like a bazillion years, not catch anything else. Like maybe it's a good idea to turn around, go back through again.
Yeah, 100%. Because you can for sure pick up a bonus fish, even if you're not in the right tide window. You can still pick up a bonus fish if you got a hot stretch, and there's a lot of active fish on that stretch. You can for sure pick up another one if it lines up correctly.
Yeah, and I know we don't have goggles to look under the water, but window wise, do you feel that like a lot of these fish kind of like move up into the grass or onto the bank or under the mats to do their thing, and then maybe they kind of dissipate after? Or do you think, especially with punching, that they're just there the whole time, and maybe they're watching your baits fall through, they just don't care, and then when you start to hit that tide window, it's go time? What do you kind of feel about that?
Yeah, I don't think that once they get in the mat, I think they really like to stay in those mats. Um, and you just got to hit the tide window correctly, because they're in there. They just, if it's the wrong tide, they just won't bite. And I've done it tons of times, where you'll go and hit a stretch, and you'll be like, man, this is it right here. The tide's rolling, and there's bluegill popping, there's crawdads skittering across the mat, and you're not catching nothing. And then you double back like an hour later, this is on my way back to the ramp. Let me just hit it for 10 minutes. And it's 3-pounder, 4-pounder, 3-pounder, 4-pounder, 5-pounder, 8-pounder, So it's all about those tide windows, man. I think Bobby really explains the tides really well. He's been out here for years. Well, he was out here for years and years and years. So his understanding of the tides is it's really vast. And just listening to Bobby just talk about stuff like that it just fires you up. You know what I mean?
No, definitely. So you said you have the Super 60 left. That's a BAM tournament, and then is the other tournament you're going to fish BAM as well, or that was a different one?
No, so these are both Future Pro tournaments, or what I think Vince called it Anglers Press now. He did I don't know if it's called Super 60, but he does like a open style tournament where if you fish all of them, that you get a chance to enter the TOC. And then he does the top 75, where you pay for everything in up front, and then you fish the whole circuit. I'm fishing both of those.
And what are the dates for those tournaments? Do you know
Uh,
or what month at least they're
uh,
in?
there October 4th is the one. October 4th and 5th is Don Pedro, and I think it's, what is it? I think it's like October 18th and 19th or something like that for the top 65 or whatever he calls it. I don't know.
On the Delta?
Yeah, so the top 75 is going to be Don Pedro, which I'm not looking forward to, and the other one's on the Delta. Yeah, both. I believe they're both 2-day tournaments.
What are our predictions weight wise? What do you think it's going to take at each one?
Don Pedro, I have no clue. No clue. I ain't never thought about that place. Not a second in my life.
Have you been there?
I've been there a few times earlier this year just because we've had some tournaments this year there, but I mean I've never been there in the fall, so I don't know how it fishes in the fall. I'm sure somebody will be able to catch 15 the first day and then maybe back it up with 11 or 12 or 11 to 13. But the Delta, maybe 18 a day, I think I'll probably do it on the Delta. 16 a day, somewhere in there.
And it's going to be you, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
You have a partner in that or no?
Yeah, I'm fishing with my my buddy Mark Mendenhall. That's who I'm fishing with
Gotcha.
for
All
both
right.
of those tournaments.
Well, yeah, maybe when we you get some of those under your belt, hey, he's going to win the Pedro one too. I can already feel it. He's going to
Hey,
find a punch bite out there.
Oh, I like the way that sounds.
I feel like you probably could maybe in like the summer when the trees are in the water, maybe like flipping the trees.
Yeah, and like Darius style, I could probably find some trees out there or something. Who knows?
I can see it. I can see it.
I,
You could catch
if,
fish other ways. I've seen you do it.
if there's a whim, there's a way. I'm gonna break out the 80-pound test and the 7-Eleven extra heavy, and I'm gonna get it done. If there's a wood pile, a weight's going through it.
Oh, that's funny. All right, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on. I think we got a lot of good information, and hopefully we can have you on again some other time, talk fishing.
Yeah, brother. Let me know, man. I'm more than willing.
Cool, man. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Good talking to you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, we just wrapped up the episode with Greg. Good time. So we got a lot of good punch information in there. I think a lot of it just comes down to like that guy just finds him. He just finds the fish. I mean, like I said, I've been in the boat with him a lot of times. I think he's super dedicated to throwing that punch all day, stubborn at times, and I think he knows that. That's kind of the game and the deal that he enjoys to do. And there's times where he doesn't catch them. Maybe if he would have adapted a little bit to something else, maybe he would have. But at the same time, the amount of fish over 4 pounds that guy's catching a year is kind of ridiculous. So he's doing something right. And I know for myself, just kind of like watching what he does, watching myself, what I do. I think it just comes down to like attention to detail, kind of like what I said earlier, introducing him and whatnot. That guy pays a lot of attention to, his line, his rods, his baits, the colors, everything. He has a lot of confidence with that. And I feel like a lot of times when I punch, I'm nothing special when it comes to punching. I catch punch fish, but I still don't feel like I've really cracked that key, like that magic thing where I'm like, okay, like I know why I'm throwing this color. I know why I'm throwing this bait. Like I'll kind of just mix it up all the time, honestly, and then I'll kind of be like, okay, they're eating this thing today. Like I can tell, and then I'll stick with it. But I don't know. In the beginning of the year, we caught some punch fish. It was going okay, but kind of on the back end, we've kind of sucked lately. I don't really know why exactly. So I have been kind of changing weights, changing colors, changing punch skirts, baits, everything, just trying to figure it out. And I think I just went too hard in the paint with the frog this year is really what it comes down to. I think I kind of neutered myself a little bit just with my variety of baits I've been throwing. And I have kind of felt that with the Delta in general, if and when I quarantine my boat and kind of commit to Folsom for that like January, February time frame before I start going back out to the Delta, I already know I'm going to be in for a world of pain because I just kind of lost a lot of my kind of adaptability and like variety of all the different baits that I've been throwing. Because this summer, I mean, God, I've been throwing topwater and a punch and like something moving, and that's really been it. I haven't thrown worms. I haven't thrown nothing slow. I've just been like, nope, we're just going fast the whole time. And I've had fun doing it. I don't necessarily regret it yet, but I know when I start picking up some of these other baits, it's going to be a little weird for a while. Just kind of figuring that whole thing out again because, believe it or not, I do have 4 or 5 spinning rods and other things for Folsom and other lakes and whatnot. But yeah, super grateful to have him on. I'm glad he took some time to talk to us and give us some good stuff. And I know soon enough, whether it be a tournament finish or him, sticking a crazy bag, he'll be back to tell us about how that went. So if you guys liked the episode, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you soon.